The moment Emma saw the man on the hospital gurney, pale and trembling from kidney failure, she felt something tug inside her, something deeper than compassion. It wasn't pity, nor duty. It was a quiet, instinctive pull that told her, help him. Whatever it takes. She didn't know his name then. She only knew he was another patient in room 407, with fading eyes and a voice too weak to beg for anything. The charts said, severe renal failure. The doctors whispered, no match yet. But for Emma, 26-year-old nurse with a heart bigger than her paycheck, that wasn't good enough. The decision. Emma worked in St. Luke's Hospital, the kind of place where miracles were rationed and hope came with paperwork. She had seen people die waiting for organs, for donors, for someone to care enough. So when the announcement went up on the staff board, urgent, typo donor needed for transplant candidate, she didn't hesitate. She didn't even know who the patient was. She just marched to the transplant office and said, test me. The nurse in charge blinked. Emma, are you sure? You know what this means. Emma smiled, though her heart pounded. I know, but someone needs it more than I do. 2 days later, the test results came back. A perfect match. The stranger. The patient's name was Daniel Hartley. To the world outside those sterile hospital walls, Daniel was a name worth millions. CEO of Hartley Enterprises, a global investment firm. A man known for his ruthlessness in the boardroom and his absence from the press. He had no family, no friends, no one who visited, only his assistant, who brought contracts and papers even to his bedside. To Emma, though, he was just another soul in need. She didn't care about his titles or his fortune. When the doctor told him about the anonymous donor match, Daniel asked in disbelief, someone volunteered, for me? Yes, the doctor said. A nurse from this hospital. Daniel stared at the ceiling for a long time after that. He had spent his life buying everything he wanted, except kindness. And now, a stranger was giving him part of her body for free. The surgery. The morning of the transplant was quiet. Emma's friends told her she was crazy. Her mother called her in tears, begging her to reconsider. You don't even know this man, she cried. Why would you risk your life for a stranger? Emma's reply was simple, because he doesn't have anyone else. When she was wheeled into the surgical room, she caught a glimpse of Daniel on the next gurney. He looked even more fragile up close, eyes closed, skin ashen. She felt an unexpected wave of protectiveness. She didn't know his story, but somehow, it didn't matter. The operation took hours. When Emma woke up, her body ached, but her heart felt lighter than it had in years. She turned her head and whispered, did he make it? The nurse smiled. He did, because of you. Emma closed her eyes, tears slipping quietly down her cheeks. The man behind the mask. Daniel recovered quickly, physically at least. But something inside him had shifted. For the first time in his life, he wanted to feel something real. He wanted to meet the person who had saved him, not out of obligation, but from genuine gratitude. But the hospital had a confidentiality policy. Donors could choose to remain anonymous, and Emma had. She didn't want thanks or publicity. So Daniel left the hospital with a second chance at life, and a heart full of questions. Emma returned to her modest apartment, her savings nearly gone from unpaid time off. But she didn't regret it. Every time she passed the transplant ward, she felt a quiet pride. Somewhere out there, someone was alive because of her. That was enough, or so she thought. Fate intervenes. 6 months later, Emma's hospital was hosting a charity gala. Nurses were encouraged to attend, though most couldn't afford the gowns for such an event. Emma borrowed one from a friend, simple, navy blue, a bit loose at the shoulders. She almost didn't go, but fate, as it turned out, had other plans. The gala was hosted by none other than Hartley Enterprises, the main donor for the hospital's new transplant wing. When the announcer introduced the man behind the company, the crowd broke into polite applause. And Emma froze. It was him, Daniel Hartley, the man whose life she had saved. He looked nothing like the frail patient she remembered. In a tailored suit, confident and poised, he commanded the room. But his eyes, those same haunted, searching eyes, were unmistakable. The recognition. During the dinner, Daniel made his way through the tables, shaking hands, exchanging smiles. But when his gaze landed on Emma, something flickered across his face, recognition, confusion, something deeper. He approached her slowly. You look familiar, he said softly. Emma's heart skipped. I'm a nurse here, she said quickly. Maybe you've seen me around. Maybe, he said, but his tone was doubtful. There was a strange pull between them, like two people connected by an invisible thread neither could name. When Daniel gave his speech later that evening, his voice cracked as he spoke. 6 months ago, I was given a second chance at life, he said. Someone I don't know, a nurse, saved me. She gave me a part of herself, asking for nothing in return. Tonight, everything I do, everything I give, is because of that person. The room applauded, unaware that the donor was standing quietly among them, tears in her eyes. The truth revealed. Weeks passed. Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that he had met his donor that night. He asked around discreetly, but no one would confirm it. Until one day, fate stepped in again. Emma was assigned to the private recovery suite, room 407 again. The patient was recovering from minor surgery. When she opened the door, she found Daniel sitting on the bed, smiling. Looks like we meet again, he said. Emma nearly dropped her chart. Mr. Hartley, what are you doing here? I could ask you the same, he replied. You're the nurse who keeps showing up in my life. Her cheeks flushed. Just doing my job. Daniel studied her for a moment. Then, quietly, he said, it was you, wasn't it? She froze. What do you mean? The kidney, he whispered. It was you. She opened her mouth to deny it, but the truth was in her eyes. He saw it, and in that moment, words became unnecessary. Tears welled in Daniel's eyes as he took her trembling hand. Why? He asked, voice breaking. You didn't even know me. Emma smiled faintly. Because I knew you needed someone. I've seen enough people die waiting. I didn't want you to be one of them. Daniel couldn't speak. For a man who had always believed everything had a price, he had no words for a gift freely given. The struggles. After that day, their lives became unexpectedly intertwined. Daniel began visiting the hospital often, sometimes under the guise of donations, sometimes just to check on the staff. Each time, he found himself drawn to Emma's quiet strength, her laughter, her humility. But Emma struggled. Rumors spread among her colleagues, the nurse who caught the millionaire's eye. Some called her lucky, others whispered behind her back that she had ulterior motives. She tried to ignore them, but the gossip hurt. Daniel, too, faced his own battles. His board questioned his priorities. Investors criticized him for wasting time on hospital projects that didn't yield profit. You're changing, Daniel, his assistant warned. You're letting emotions cloud your judgment. Maybe he was, but for the first time, he didn't care. One evening, Daniel found Emma in the hospital garden, crying quietly after a particularly cruel rumor. He sat beside her, wordless for a while. Then he said softly, "Do you regret saving me?" She looked up, startled. "Of course not." "Then don't regret being seen with me either," he said gently. "Let them talk. You gave me life, Emma. The least I can do is help make yours easier." Healing together. Over time, their friendship deepened. Daniel began volunteering at the hospital, sponsoring programs for patients who couldn't afford treatment. Emma saw the walls he had built around himself slowly crumble. Beneath the CEO exterior was a man who had been lonely far too long, a man learning to live again. And Daniel saw Emma for who she truly was, not just the nurse who had saved him, but the woman who taught him what it meant to live. Months turned into a year. Their connection grew into something undeniable, though unspoken. One evening, Daniel invited Emma to the newly opened Hartley Transplant Center, built in her honor, though she didn't know that yet. As they walked through the gleaming halls, she stopped at a plaque near the entrance. Dedicated to the selfless donors and nurses whose compassion saves lives. In honor of one, Emma Clark. She turned to him, eyes wide. "You did this." He smiled softly. "You did this. I just gave it a name." Tears filled her eyes. "You didn't have to." "I know," he said. "But you taught me that the best things in life aren't bought, they're given." The message. That night, under the hospital lights, Daniel took her hand. "You saved my life once," he said quietly. "But you've saved me every day since, just by being who you are." Emma smiled, tears glistening. "Then I guess we saved each other." In a world that often forgets the power of kindness, theirs became a story whispered through hospital halls, a story not about wealth or status, but about the heart of one young nurse who gave without expecting anything, and the lonely man who finally learned that love, like life, is a gift best shared. Moral. Sometimes, the smallest act of kindness can change two lives forever. You may never know whose life you're saving, or how, in saving them, you just might save yourself.